Hey everybody, CP Hadley here, and as you can see behind me, it's system building day. And thankfully, the Fractal R4 Revision 2, sitting behind me here, has a lot of the hard work done already, because I did this system build once before using a Z87 motherboard that I either damaged or something happened to it because the ability to run dual channel memory just kind of crapped out on it when I put it in this case. So I don't know, it's off at ASUS for RMA. We'll see if it comes back. But in the meantime, I decided to step up to the ASUS Z87-Pro motherboard because why not go Haswell? Didn't want to wait for the board to come back. If it does, I have another use for it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this system that's already got all the drives and the cable management and everything taken care of and drop these components in. So what have I got here? Well, of course, I've got the Z87-Pro motherboard, which I did an unboxing of this in another video, so be sure to check that out. And sitting inside of that is going to be this Xeon 1150 LGA chip, so Haswell, and it's the 1230 V3. And then, you know, maybe a little overkill on the cooler as well. I went with the Hyper 212 Evo, but, you know, I really hate stock coolers, so I wanted to step it up. I wanted something that was going to be nice and whisper quiet. I had an Intel stock cooler before that had kind of like a high-pitched noise, drove me crazy, so I didn't want to have that. And then I'm going to pair that with 16 gigabytes of low-profile DDR3 1600 memory, because I have used this cooler in the past and had to get away to memory before because it does hang over the memory slots in most motherboards, so I wanted to make sure I didn't do that this time. And then that's going to go with the GeForce GTX 780 GHz Edition from Gigabyte. I had a 770 in my Z77 system for a while, and it was able to run most games at 1440p on an ASUS monitor, and I just figured, you know what, I'm going to step it up this time, and I'm going to just go crazy, go 780, so that's what I did. And then I'm going to stick a couple of additional 140mm fans in the Fractal case because why not? They were cheap and I want to make sure I have good airflow. So be sure to watch. I'm going to do a time lapse of that and you'll be able to see that go down. If you're interested in installing an Evo 212, I'm going to do a separate video for me actually putting the heatsink on. If you haven't installed one of these before, it can be a little bit tricky. So, you know, if you're interested, give that video a watch. Other than that, it's time to get building.
All right, well, rather than have you sit in awkward silence, I thought I'd run through kind of what I'm doing here as I'm doing the build. Obviously, I'm switching out my faceplate here and preparing the motherboard, making sure that all of the standoffs are good, and then dropping in the motherboard and doing my least favorite thing, and that's trying to line it up at that back plate, you know, before I screw everything down, which you can see I check it a few times to make sure everything's still lined up. This one was a real bear to actually get in, and of course I lost a few screws, so I had to fish those out. But really, this was pretty easy since I already had everything wired up. I just went in and plugged in all of my cables, you know, SATA, little teeny cables you got to plug in for your hard drive, power LED, and whatnot. And you can see me struggling a little bit getting the CPU power in, but, you know, nothing too major. And then, of course, throwing in the extra FN140s, those fans. You know, I like having good airflow in the front when you've got a big GPU. I think that helps a lot. It just keeps things moving around in there, especially when you got a GPU that vents into the case. You want to make sure that you've got that moving. So with that in mind, put in some fans on the top too, because, you know, why not? And actually, I ended up putting a second fan up here later besides just this the single fan because I found it actually just sitting around. So, hell, you can never have too many case fans. That's what I say. So go wild. As long as they're not too loud, you're good to go. And you can kind of see me tidying up a little bit of the cable management in the back here and plugging in all the fans into the controller for the case. And then this part was kind of a bear. Getting the graphics card in the Fractal case wasn't the easiest thing in the world because I have a part that kind of stands off to hold the extra backplate thing that you can put in. And I don't know why they do this because you had plenty, but I got it in, got it screwed down, and just plugged into power. And then here was my failed attempt at the LED lighting. I looked around in the case, decided it was just going to make too much of a mess, so said, don't need it.
That's it. It's all done. Everything's hooked up. Got the cooler on there underneath the, or on top of the Xeon. Got the GHz Edition 780 in there. Look at that thing, man. That's a big boy right there, taking up a lot of space in the case. Then I've got my 1TB Western Digital Black, as well as a 128 gigabyte SSD that I've had actually for quite a while. I've moved it through a few different systems. On top of that, I have an AX760 Platinum certified, Platinum 80 certified hard drive power supply. got the hard drives into mine, so I'm thinking about adding another SSD, bigger one. And then I got an optical drive, DVD burner for like $15, just to have it, just in case. Got a big case, why not? And then I actually, then the 16 gigs of RAM, I decided not to put the LED strips in here. I was going to have to run some more cables, and it was going to kind of mess up my whole cable management scheme that I got going here. That I think looks pretty good. So yeah, it's just time to plug this in, cross my fingers, and hope that we have a Xeon build with a big beefy graphics card, ready to do some work and do some gaming. Okay, booting up for the first time here. Well, not really, I've booted before. I want to show something right off the bat though. When I first did the computer boot, I got an error message that said the CPU fan was too low, so I got a CPU fan warning. And that's because the fan on that 212 Evo apparently will spin all the way down. You can see that right now it's in the 600s. It'll go below 600 from time to time. And if it does that, the computer gets pretty unhappy about it. As you see, it's getting pretty darn close to dropping in that range right now. So what you want to do to solve that problem is go into advanced mode, and then go over to monitor, and then just scroll down, and you'll get to CPU fan, CPU Q fan. Switch this to, I'm going to set mine on probably 300, and then going to exit and save changes. And that will solve that error from coming up, because if it does come up with the error that you have a problem with the CPU fan, it will stop you from booting into Windows. So you want to make sure you take care of that. So I'm going to go ahead and boot into my existing Windows install, just to kind of take a look at things and show you that everything did go according to plan as far as getting the install done. One thing I did do on the Fractal case while we're waiting for Windows to boot here is I decided to switch the power LED plug on the motherboard to hard drive LED, activity LED, because there is no hard drive LED light on the Fractal R4, and I wanted to have that option, so I went ahead and just switched it, so now the light blinks when there's activity, which is what I would prefer. So just a little pro tip for you there. So now that we're on the desktop, I can go ahead and open up CPU-Z here and check things out. Make sure that everything is showing up as it should. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Okay, looking at CPU-Z, everything checks out here. Got the Intel Xeon E3 processor showing up, 22 nanometer right there, so you know you're on Haswell right there. And voltage looks good. Speed is where it should be. It's 3.3. And then looking at the memory, 99924, which is correct. That's what the memory was sold as. And we are at 1600, 800. We are in dual mode. So everything looks good there. We got the GTX 780. So everything checks out. So now I just need to do the system burn in and make sure that looks good. And then of course I'm going to do a fresh install of Windows because I like to do that after I do a hardware update, like a motherboard or something like that. I keep most of my stuff on a separate drive anyway, so it's not a big deal. And then just for fun, we'll go ahead and load this up too and take a quick look. So yeah, everything looks good on the temperatures. The core is staying nice and cool, mid-30s. It's jumping around there, but 30, 40, 30, 40. So yeah, it's time to do Windows install. Windows deactivated itself, so it's time to get to work. But successful build.